Well, hello and welcome to another Faith, Philosophy and Life with me, Mr. Cheltenham. It's great to see you again, and I do hope you and your family are doing well. We are, as I said last time, going to be thinking about rules. Today we're going to look at why we might have rules and some of the rules that we might want to consider for the world that we live in. But before we do that, here are some road signs. Let's work out if we recognise any of them. If you know the highway code and you're ever on your bike, or you are sitting in a passenger as a car, sitting in a car as a passenger even, then you should get familiar with these. So let's have a look at those and see if we can work out what they are. Pause me now while you do that. Okay, so let's go over what we have got. If you haven't got them down, then pause me, make sure they're done, because here are the answers. The first one is no entry. It means you can't go there. The second one is no overtaking. That's the red and the black car. Then you have a stop sign. That's fairly obvious. You have to stop. Underneath the no entry sign, there are traffic lights ahead. It's a warning sign. Then you've got egg on toast. No, you haven't. You've got speed bumps. The road being bumpy rather than the speed bumps. It's road being bumpy. Uneven. Then you've got skiddy road ahead, and on the bottom row you've got beware of a locomotive, a level crossing. It has no gates, or else there'd be a gate. You've got beware of elderly people, you've got parking, and no right turn. I wonder how many of those you got right. Go and grab your pen and paper, because here's our cheesy intro sequence. Okay, so our title today is Why Have Rules? Why have rules? And today we're going to explore why people and cultures have rules. Simple as. It's going to be good if you can reflect on rules that you follow and reasons why you do or don't actually think they're useful. Great if you can explore what rules would help society and why people might disagree with them. And even better if you can evaluate if rules need to benefit everyone, or if you can, in fact, rules can negatively impact people, and that could still be okay. So we are going to think about trolleys, a worksheet we're going to discuss, and then that's kind of where we're up to, really. So trolleys then. Okay, this is the argument that I want you to think about. This is a famous trolley problem by Philippa and Foot. In fact, let's just watch this. What would you do? Would you flip the switch or not?
A runaway train is heading towards 5 workers on a railway line. There's no way of warning them, but you're standing near a lever that operates some points. Switch the points, and the train goes down a spur. Trouble is, there's another worker on that bit of track too, but it's 1 fatality instead of 5. Should you do that? Many people think the right thing to do would be to switch the points, to sacrifice 1 to save 5, since that produces the best outcome possible. Now imagine the train heading for the workers again. This time it can only be stopped by pushing a very large man off a bridge. His great bulk would stop the train, but he'd die. Should you do that? Most people say no. But why not? Both thought experiments are cases of sacrificing 1 to save 5. What the trolley problem examines is whether moral decisions are simply about outcomes or about the manner in which you achieve them. Some utilitarians argue that the 2 cases are not importantly different from each other. Both have similar consequences, and consequences are all that really matter. In each case, 1 person dies and 5 are saved, the best option in each harrowing situation. But lots of people say they would switch the points, but they wouldn't push the man off the bridge. Are they simply inconsistent, or are they onto something?
Okay, that obviously came from the BBC. Really good little clip there. So, huge issue. Would you harm one person to save 5 people? Would that be an acceptable thing to do? In this world that we're living in at the minute, is it okay to curtail freedoms in order that this virus may go away? Is it okay to say to people, you're not allowed out, in order that people can feel better later and society as a whole can do better? Just some thoughts there for you. So let's move on to some slightly more interesting, well, that's quite interesting, but let's move on to some other considerations. I want you to think about your school and think about what rules would you say are most important. I'd like to make a little diagram like this, where in the middle you've got things that are most important, then you've got very important, important, fairly important, and the maybe not important at all. And maybe not just thinking about your own school, maybe thinking about a school, if you were going to create one, what rules would you put in place? So spend 5 or 6 minutes doing that and see what rules you come up with that you think are important. Remember everything today, can you please photograph, send through to your teachers, because we'd love to see it. Pause me now when you get that done, come back to me when you're done. Okay, so utilitarianism, and what is it and how do rules apply? Utilitarianism is simply, let's get this written in our book, utilitarianism is the greatest amount of pleasure or happiness for the greatest amount of people. Let me say that again. It's the greatest amount of pleasure or happiness for the greatest amount of people. So therefore it's okay to come up with a rule that might negatively impact someone if it means that everyone else does better. Okay, which is really hard because that rule might impact you. That rule might be something that you suffer from. But a utilitarian would say, we've got to look at the big picture here. And the big picture is that we've got to think about everyone else and put them before us, which is a really interesting perspective to have. It means that, for example, if you were a surgeon and you had someone who was really not very well, had no family, but they had a very good healthy heart, lungs, bladder, liver, and in the room next to you you've got 4 patients who need a heart, lungs, liver and bladder, individually obviously. You could transplant those from this man that no one really cares about, that's probably dying anyway, into these 4 that then have families that they can make an impact on. Would that be an acceptable thing to do? In your books, just write a little response to that. Would that be something you think would be a good thing or an acceptable thing to do or not, and why? Okay, it's a little bit like the trolley problem that we've just saw at the start. The train is coming down the train tracks, going to hit 5 people, but you could flick a switch. Would you do it? Most people would probably flick the switch and kill that one person, they'd say, but when you get to the one about pushing the bloke off the bridge to do it, most people would draw a line at that, because they would say that in fact is murder because you're physically doing something, whereas when it's just a switch, it's okay to do that. Interesting. It's very much an excuse used during the trials after World War II to explain the concentration camps. But that's a discussion that we'll have in class at some point, I am sure. So what I'd like you to do now is to use the description below to access this worksheet, and I'd like you to answer those questions in full sentences in your book and then come back to me when you're done. So we said it would be good if we could reflect on rules that you follow and the reasons why they're useful or not, and think about what rules we would help society with. And this is kind of all that we're thinking about during today's session, and obviously we've thought about utilitarianism. So also in that description below is a link to a load of situations. What I'd like to do is to look at those, maybe choose 5 or 6 of them, okay? Explain which ones you think are most acceptable Or which ones would you say that you have a solution to? Which ones would you go along with? Which ones would you say are out of order? Maybe choose 5 and just write some sort of reflection based on that. This is going to take you 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. Come back to me when we're done. Okay, so what we've done then is we've said what would make a good outcome would be the rules that you would think about that are useful or not, and that's your grid that you did at the start, the square thing. We said what rules we think would help society, and we've had that conversation, which we're going to move on to now just again, and then even better we can evaluate if they rules should benefit everyone else, and we've talked about that with utilitarianism. So, congratulations, this is our final task for today's session. You have been selected with 9 other teenagers, God help us, from around the UK to be part of a new reality television show. You might say this sounds a little bit like the old Big Brother. Strangely it does. You will all live in a house monitored by cameras 24 hours a day. That might be a little bit freaky. There will be no adults to supervise you. Ooh. So, there are 4 questions there for you to work through in your books. This will take you to the rest of the lesson. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for your time. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. Wash your hands. God bless you. I'll be seeing you soon. Let's get those answered now. You'll need to pause this.